My name is Robyn Renner. I'm the Assistant Director of Home Repair and Disaster Relief. I've been at CAP for 33 years, and I was actually 25 when I first came to CAP. Um, yeah, I was at a hard place at the time, and just really recently, before I came to CAP, gave my life to Christ. I was having a hard time, and I was going through a divorce and had a little girl, and we were in the custody battle, and I just recently became a Christian and didn't like my job at the time, and then I wound up losing that job and was needing a job, and I just remember. I tell this story quite a bit, but I remember just praying so hard one night, like, Lord, give me a family. I need a family to help me be a better person, uh, to do your will, to do what I needed to him, what he wanted me to do. Um, at the time, I didn't know how much he did answer that prayer, but he definitely answered that prayer. I got a job offer at CAP, which I had no clue what CAP was, or Christian Appalachian Project. It was temporary. So back then, this was in 91. And back then, when you're hired temporary, you could only stay 6 months, and then you're done. So I was there 6 months. Gwinnett Ray is the one that spoke to me, and she said, "Well, give it time. We may have another opening." And so it was less than a month. They called me back and had a job opening, and so that was the beginning of what I had no clue what my career was going to look like. So. That's kind of how I started with CAP. Like I said, I prayed that my family at the time was not. None of my family went to church or Christians, and so I was just kind of newly getting learning about this, and I just needed a change of pace. I needed some people that I knew that could help me get to where I needed to be. Um, it was the people at CAP. So I tell this story a lot too, and I love it. But I was never really exposed to a workplace that had prayer. So when I started at CAP, every morning at 9:30, they would say, "Good morning, it's prayer time." And so I'm like, so I started going to that, and it was the people in that prayer room that made a difference. I had no idea how much love and care that they, a stranger, they didn't know me from Adam. All those just kind of took me under their wing. They prayed for me, and just like family. They opened the door up, just family. And that's one reason that I stayed. The other is just opportunity to me. I love missions. I've always loved missions ever since I've become a Christian. And I look back, and years later, at CAP has been a mission field for me. I didn't realize that until years down the road. I thought it's a job, and I'm like, here I'm getting paid for something that I love to do. So that's the other reason is because we're hands and feet of Christ, and being able to help people in need. And that's, you don't find that very often. 33 years, it's kind of all that bundled into one. The two biggest things that stand out is, of course, the helping people have a safe, warm, and dry home. The other is we would have a women's retreat, and it was like 2 nights, 3 days. We usually had it at Camp AJ, and it was mostly women who we have served through family advocacy or through home repair, and it was women that just needed a break. They had kids, they cooked, cleaned, just didn't have the money for vacation, never went on vacation. They just needed time away from kids, spouse. So I started that in Camp Andrew Jackson, and they would come and stay the night, and we would do glamour shots, and we would have like health fairs. People would come up, and they would have an opportunity to check their blood pressure and things like that. And we'd play bingo. We would have prizes that we would give them through OpShare, gifts that we had gotten. But just the bond that those women, and it was women usually, they did not know each other until they came to that retreat, and they became best friends, and they would continue communicating together. It was getting to know those ladies, and then of course we had the Christmas basket distribution and school readiness distribution, and we would have a Christmas service, and a local pastor would come and talk about the meaning of Christmas, and so we would have those and then following that we would give the gifts out to the families, and yeah, a lot of memories. For me, I could very easily be in those shoes. Without Cap giving me a job, I may be the person that needs, help. And so to be able to treat them with respect, they're human beings. They're to be able to help them grow, or just to be there to just let them know they're loved. There's so many people today, are so judgmental, well, how did you get in that shape? It's your fault, da da da. That's not true. We try to be the hands and feet of Christ, and show love. That's what we're here to show, love, not judgment. And so that's why, I try to treat people like I want to be treated. I remember we used to say, well, we help our neighbors. That's what we do. Well, who's your neighbor? Well, it's anybody that you come in contact with that is in need. It's not, I taught this in Sunday school the other day. It's not the person near your house. It's anybody who, God puts in the place that at that time that they need help. When we have groups, the first thing we do is pray with them. And when groups are here then the last thing we do before we leave the job site is pray. And if the family, we invite them if they want to come. When the groups pack their lunch, I was like, hey, pack a few more sandwiches so that maybe invite the family to come and eat lunch with you. And so they do that. Sometimes the family will say, don't bring your lunch the next day. I want to cook for you. So that gives them pride and dignity. They're giving back. We do invite, if they're able, hey, won't you come along with us and help us hammer this nail? Or, some of the kids are at home and they want to come and help. And so having them be a part of that, inviting them to help out, or, be able to give back, and give them an opportunity, to be a part of that. I love the part when the family, after the repairs are done, and they just look at their home, and it's a huge difference in what we've done, and they would have normally not had that opportunity, or not had the money to hire somebody to do it. And then we do a lot of HVACs too, and safe, warm, and dry. And some of these homes, they don't have heat, they don't have air. A lot of the elderly heat with wood. They get to the point where they're not able to do that. And so, yeah, just sitting down talking with the families, and they're just so grateful for, having a safe, warm, and dry home. We work with so many now that are grandparents raising grandkids, and I can't imagine being 70 years old and raising little toddlers and stuff. And so to be able to reach out and help those especially is just, it just feels good to be able to know that that's one less thing that they have to deal with. They've got so many other things. Well, the biggest part is I can't believe I get paid to do something like this, because I've been on other mission trips too, to El Salvador and Haiti, and those are just voluntary. And then I guess when I started doing that, and then I come back and we take kind of the same groups that come here, and I think of all that, what I felt going to a place like that. That's how I wanted these groups to feel a part of helping these people in this area. I guess it really didn't dawn on me until I did the international mission trips, how similar that was. And I don't, just an opportunity to be a part of it. I mean, I'm so thankful that I'm not doing the same repetitive thing every day and day out, Monday through Friday. I get to get out, and meet the families and be a part of CAP, of what we are to serve them. But yeah, I don't know of any other agency that, offers that opportunity. Good group of folks, and they say every day how much they love their job. Uh, Jeff's like, "How you doing? Is everything okay?" I am so blessed. He says that I am so blessed. Um, but yeah, to give others opportunity to be able to give back and to see what it means to work for CAP, and freedom to work with these folks and to be able to serve them. Being able to be here with people who have the same love and the same servant heart, uh, mission minded. I mean, it's just awesome. I can't explain it. Both of my parents worked in factories, and they used to come home, and I used to remember them just complaining and complaining. And I'm like, when I was little, I'm like, I don't want to do that. I want to love what I do. I want to spend, day in and day out, you're spending more time at work than you are with your family. And I want to have that passion. And I think God has answered that prayer. I love what I do, and I love CAP family, and the people that works here, like I said, have the same mission-minded, servant heart that I do, and I guess that's what's kept me here. Um, I've had the opportunity to work in several different programs as I've been here, and get to know a lot of those programs and the people in them, and just absolutely love them. My husband mostly raised tobacco, and so the volunteers started asking the ones that was from up north and had no idea what tobacco was. Well, we'd like to know what tobacco is. And I was like, well, you just come on over. So it was an annual thing. Then after that, for 4 or 5 years, that we started having the volunteers over, but we would have them load the wagons and put it in the barn. And then I'd always have a cookout afterwards. And so it was just, I loved it. They loved it. They learned about a little bit about tobacco and how to house it and cure it. And so, of course, we don't raise tobacco anymore, but that time I always remember that. We had several volunteers that was part of that. We were able to invite them on the farm and show them what tobacco was. And it was yeah, and I still, and communicate with a lot of those volunteers that was here. That's been 20 years ago. I look back, and I'm getting older, and I was talking to my husband actually the other day and said, and I actually started crying. I said, I don't know life without CAP. I said, I'm getting to that age where I'm thinking about retiring, and, we live on a farm and plenty to do, but I'm like, I don't know if I ever want to retire. I said, because I've done it for the last 33 years. It's, the people here and the opportunities. I know what they always say, well, you can come back and volunteer, and I probably will, but I can't imagine life without CAP. I need to write a book, Life Without CAP. I don't know if I can do that. I think the family oriented, the people that are still here now still have that vision, our service and, helping people, the family oriented, helping each other out, not only participants, but, we have outside lives too, and, been able to come and share what's going on. My mom's got Parkinson's, and so, people are just like, well, I'm going to pray for her. And so just that closeness. And when things happen, in your personal life, you've got that CAP support. CAP is always wanting to meet the needs that are not there in the community. And when they are met, and that's something that CAP's doing. For example, the school readiness program. When we first started the school readiness program, there wasn't anybody doing anything like that. There was nobody giving out school supplies or clothes or anything helping the kids. We don't do that as much anymore, but we more support with the material needs. So I think CAP is really good about, hey, that's already taken care of. We don't need to do that. Let's spend our resources and time here that's not being met. Home repair, I have found like that is one of the things that is not, we don't have that hardly any. There's no services that provide home repair other than what you'd have to pay a contractor. And these families just they can't afford it. So I think, yeah, our waiting list is huge with home repair. So we have a lot of elderly that just are not able to do the repairs or afford them. My heart's in home repair, but it's also disaster relief. Disaster relief has always like depended upon home repair because we have the crew leaders, who are able to lead the volunteers. Because if you don't, you can't just send volunteers out with no leader. Disaster relief started in 2004 with a flood that happened in eastern Kentucky. It was not a widespread, it was small. And then Katrina hit. And so we wind up going down to Ocean Springs and Biloxi, and for I think was somewhat like 3 months backwards and forwards. We would send a team down every 2 weeks and bring them back. So I used to, I still do sometimes volunteer with Kentucky Baptist Disaster Relief, and I did that. My love for missions probably happened in 1998 when I first started going there. And then when CAP had disaster relief, and I'm like, oh my gosh, so I was part of that. And so I stepped into the director of disaster relief in 2012, 2013, something like that. It's probably the hardest, but it's the most fulfilling. I don't know how to say that, but rewarding, to help people in that situation, because you absolutely know without a doubt they need help, and so to be able to lead teams, to do it's much different than home repair, because it's muck outs, they call them. I know it's not a pretty word. Muck and gut is what you call it. Some of these families completely lost everything, and so to be able to be a part of that, you get so close to these families because they don't know what to do. And to see them when we first arrive, that they've lost so much, and when we finish, we help them, they're just a totally different person, because you begin, you don't know what to do. You don't even know where to start. You've lost everything. My house burned in 2004, and I got to experience the other side of that. People trying to help, and it's a very humble experience that if you haven't been through it, you don't know what it feels like. It's easy to be on the other side to help. Yeah, well, I can give you this and give you that, and but to be on the other side of that, it's just very humbling, and it's hard to accept help. But when you need it, you need it. And a lot of those families was just so grateful. But it's hard. It's hard. I think of the lady that I probably got too close to in the 2022 floods, and she was an elderly lady living by herself, and she didn't lose her entire home, but oh my gosh, it got like 3 feet in her home, and just giving her support and help through all that. Yeah, it's very, very humbling. Well, the hardest was the Eastern Kentucky floods. I have no doubt about that. That was hard. I don't know why it was so hard. Maybe it was because it was at home, but what CAP Disaster Relief does, we go in we do the muck and gut, clean up, and we leave. Uh, and we don't see the after effect of that. We did in the 2022 floods. We were there, like the Flat Gap floods. I call it the Flat Gap floods, which is in eastern Kentucky. It was a secluded area, which happened in the area of Flat Gap. And because it was uh, more secluded, that you got to know the families that were affected then. And we actually had some of our CAP staff got flooded, and they lived in that area as well. Just the impact that CAP would come in there and be able to clean all that up, just and the relief of that family. So many families would say, I can't afford to pay you to do this. I'm like, no, we're not charging anything. And they're like, what? They couldn't believe that, because they had other people come around and give them a bid of how much it would cost to clean it up. And like, no, we're not charging anything. And, just the tears, to be able to witness that and see the families, just a relief on their face to be able to do that. Yeah, I think right now the most impactful is the volunteers. It's the participants, but it's also the volunteers that comes time after time. I have a handful of volunteers that, if I say, hey, there's a flood in such and such area, can you come help? Yes. I've got some that is there every time that works so hard. I think of life without volunteers, and I was like, I wouldn't miss that for the world, to be able to get to know the volunteers that are here. So, I always say God brings the best people here, and they have. I've met some absolutely wonderful people, and without being at CAP, I wouldn't have had that opportunity to get to know them. I was able to go back to school while I worked, and CAP had the educational assistance program, and so I would have never done that if I had not had that opportunity. And the support and the encouragement. I keep saying that, but that's what kept me going. There's been times we just sit and talk about the Lord, what He's done for us and how we got here, and miracles that's happened that, sometimes we don't see. So that's been amazing, and I wouldn't have gotten that anywhere else. And as long as they follow, what Father Biding would have done years ago, it'll continue to serve, and they're here for the long haul, is what I always say. During disaster relief, we're in our area. If something happened, we're here for the long haul, as long as the need's there.